When my stepdaughter said, "You're just mom's thing," I decided to stop being a thing. I packed, left, and took the financial plan with me. My name is Steve. I'm 52 years old. I live in Vermont, in a two-story home I used to call ours. I spent 16 years in a relationship with a woman named Mary. We never married, not because we didn't believe in the ceremony, but because we thought we'd already done the hard part. We built a life. We paid the mortgage, shoveled snow off the same driveway, watched the same ceiling fan spin every night. I thought that was commitment enough. She had a daughter, Jaden. She was 9 when I moved in. 9 and already deeply scarred by her father, Kyle, who disappeared after the divorce like a magician with no encore. For years, she barely spoke his name. He sent birthday texts sometimes, usually a day late, never showed up to her recitals or parent-teacher conferences. That was my seat. I didn't just step in, I committed. Quietly, consistently. I picked her up from school, helped with algebra homework, taught her how to drive in the church parking lot. She never said thank you, not really, but I told myself she didn't need to. I saw it in the way she'd look for me at the finish line of her track meets, or the time she cried when I fixed her laptop hours before a big paper was due. Those moments were enough, or so I believed. Over time, I stopped keeping track of what I gave. I covered school trips, braces, soccer cleats. When she needed new tires in college, I wired the money before she even asked. When her phone broke, I was already at the store. I paid for therapy when she had a breakdown her sophomore year. I even paid for her study abroad in Florence. 12 grand, just like that. I was the man behind the curtain, the steady presence, the invisible backbone of their lives. But Jaden? She started looking through me like glass. I didn't notice at first. Or maybe I refused to. Little things. Like the way she'd introduce me to her friends, if she introduced me at all. "That's Steve. He's around." That's how she put it once. I remember it clearly. I was standing 5 feet away, carrying in bags from Costco. At dinner, she'd speak across me, never to me. When I offered advice, she'd glance at Mary, like only her mother's words mattered. When I disagreed with something, curfew spending, she'd smile and say, "It's not really your call, Steve." Always with that name. Not Dad. Not even stepdad. Just Steve. Like I was a tenant in their house. I told myself, she's young. Give it time. Be patient. Love is a long game. But love, it turns out, is not immune to erosion. The Orlando trip was the first deep crack. I planned the whole thing, flights, hotel, park passes. Jaden was finishing her junior year, and I thought we could reconnect. She used to love roller coasters. I imagined us screaming together on Space Mountain, maybe laughing over overpriced churros. But they went without me. I came home from work, suitcase in hand, ready to pack, and found the house empty. Mary left a note on the kitchen table. We didn't want to ruin the vibe. Ruin the vibe. I remember sitting at that table for a long time, staring at those 4 words. My food went cold. My beer turned flat. And still, I sat there, wondering what vibe I had ruined. The vibe of being reminded who paid for the damn trip. Mary called the next day, casual as if nothing happened. "You understand, right? She just needs space sometimes." I didn't argue. I never did when it came to Jaden. But that night, I lay awake listening to the silence in the house and felt it press against my ribs like a weight. Something had shifted. Not suddenly, but finally. Still, I didn't act. I kept giving. Christmas came. I bought Jaden a MacBook, engraved her initials on it. She opened it, smiled, said, "Thanks, Steve," then went back to texting. No hug, no warmth, just obligation. Mary didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and chose not to see it. Her loyalty was always subtle and always conditional. If Jaden was smiling, Mary was satisfied. Then came the day. I had just gotten home from work. Long day. I'm an HVAC technician. My hands were raw from cold copper and soot. I came in, dropped my bag, and there she was, Jaden, standing by the stairs with her phone in hand, scrolling. I smiled, said something about dinner. She didn't even look up. "Relax, Steve," she said. "You're just mom's thing. Just mom's thing." That was it. Not a scream, not a fight. Just a line spoken like truth. Like gravity. Like something she'd believed for years and finally decided to say out loud. My first reaction was numbness. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there, feeling my chest go hollow. I remember walking upstairs, sitting on the edge of the bed, and staring at the dresser we'd bought together. Every photo frame, every keepsake, looked suddenly foreign. I opened my laptop. Bank accounts, spreadsheets, vendor lists, tuition payments, rent transfers. I looked at every single line and realized they were all mine. I didn't sleep that night. I just watched the room go dark around me. The next morning I packed a bag. Not everything, just enough. I left quietly. Mary wasn't home. Jaden didn't notice, or didn't care. I drove north, found a motel near the river, checked in under a different name, sat in a vinyl chair with a vending machine sandwich and thought about every dollar I'd spent on someone who called me a thing. But here's what still gets me. I shouldn't have been surprised. The signs were always there. The slights, the jokes, the way Mary deferred to her daughter every single time. The way she'd say, "She's still growing," or "She doesn't mean it like that," or "You're overreacting." I wasn't. I just didn't want to face it. I wanted to believe love would be enough. That if I kept showing up, kept paying, kept holding everything together, they'd finally see me. But all I became was convenient. And convenience doesn't earn loyalty. It doesn't earn love. So when Jaden said those words, I didn't break. I woke up, and I realized what I already knew. You can give everything to a house, but if no one inside calls it home, you're just a guest. I wasn't part of their family. I was a fixture, a wallet with a face, a substitute they tolerated. And so I did the only thing left. I stopped being their thing. I walked away. You'd think a wedding would be a moment of gratitude, of reflection, a time to acknowledge the people who helped you get there, the people who stayed. But Jaden's wedding wasn't built on gratitude. It was built on entitlement, and I helped lay the foundation. She got engaged in October. Some kid named Lucas with a half-finished degree and a podcast no one listened to. But she lit up when she talked about him, and I tried to support that. I smiled, nodded, opened my wallet like I always did. The venue was upstate, a barn refurbished into some boho fairy tale, all reclaimed wood and overpriced fairy lights. She brought me the brochure like it was scripture. "Isn't it perfect?" she asked. "We just need the deposit soon." I paid it the next morning. Then came the engagement party, catered, of course. The guest list bloated. 40 people I didn't know, none of whom knew who I was. I stood near the back, holding a tray of shrimp I had paid for, watching Jaden toast to love and new beginnings, without so much as a glance in my direction. Mary smiled, thanked me quietly, and said, "She's just excited," like that excused the erasure. But I kept giving. Drove 6 hours to tour florist options. Took days off work to meet vendors. Covered the bachelorette cabin on the lake. 3 nights, stocked fridge, hot tub. I even paid the photographer deposit. My name wasn't on any of the contracts, but my card was. It added up fast. 40 grand, give or take. I didn't flinch. Not then. Because some part of me still thought, maybe this is when she'll see me. Maybe this is when she finally says, "I couldn't have done this without you." Instead, 3 weeks before the wedding, Mary dropped it during dinner. No emotion. No warning. "Kyle's going to walk her down the aisle. She wants it that way." I remember the way my fork froze halfway to my mouth. The room went silent. My heart didn't race. It slowed. Like something inside me was putting itself to sleep. Kyle. The man who'd vanished before her 10th birthday. The man who never sent cards, never showed up, never paid a cent toward her life. He was walking her down the aisle. I didn't say a word, just nodded. Finished dinner in silence. Mary didn't notice my hands shaking. Later, Jaden said it plainly. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was casual, indifferent. That's what made it worse. "You're just mom's guy, Steve. But thanks for the help." Thanks for the help. like I was the plumber who fixed a leak, a contractor she could pay with a nod. That night, I opened my laptop. Every portal, every invoice, every financial plan they had built the wedding on, I held the keys. So I turned the lights off. Florist? Balance canceled. Caterer? Transfer frozen. DJ? Invoice locked. Venue? Final payment withheld. They had built their dream wedding on a foundation of my silence. My compliance. They thought I'd keep giving, keep showing up, no matter how loudly they erased me. They were wrong. 5 days before the wedding, the calls started. First Mary. Panicked. The florist says she didn't get the final payment. Did something happen? Then Jaden. Angry. Screaming. The caterer just pulled out. What the hell did you do? I answered calmly. You said Kyle is your real dad. Let him pay for your real wedding. Then I hung up. The next few days were a blur of chaos for them. Not for me. I sat on the porch with a beer, watching the maple leaves start to turn. The phone rang again and again. I didn't answer. Mary left voicemails, pleading, bargaining, then blaming, then silence. 3 days out, I got a message from Lucas. A single line. Dude, what is your problem? I didn't reply. He wasn't part of the deal. He just wandered into the wreckage. On the day of the wedding, I parked across the street, watched as guests wandered, confused, waiting outside the venue while staff refused to set up. I saw Jaden pacing, phone pressed to her ear. Mary flustered. Kyle, sweating through his shirt, arguing with the DJ who was demanding cash up front. No flowers, no music, no bartender, just folding chairs and plastic tablecloths under a gray sky. Eventually, someone brought out a speaker. Bluetooth. The sound crackled, low quality, like a birthday party in a church basement. The caterer showed up late, half the menu slashed. Cold sandwich platters. Store-bought sheet cake. Kyle walked her down the aisle. His arm stiff, his smile forced. The guests clapped politely, but I saw it in their faces. Confusion. Disappointment. Whispers. At the reception, the bar ran dry in under an hour. People started leaving before the speeches. The photographer bailed after not receiving his balance. Jaden looked radiant, but hollow, like someone playing a role in a ruined play. And Kyle? He looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. I left before the dancing. Not that there was any. A few days later, a neighbor stopped me. I heard about the wedding. People are talking. Everyone knows what happened. And no one blames you, Steve. Not after the way she treated you. Even Kyle called me, said he owed me an apology, that he didn't know I had done all that. You should have known, I said. Then I hung up. Mary didn't come home that week. Neither did Jaden. The house was quiet. Still. No phone buzzing. No shoes left by the door. No footsteps upstairs. I made coffee in silence and drank it by the window. And for the first time in years, I tasted peace. I parked across the street. I didn't go in. Didn't make a scene. That wasn't the point. I just wanted to see what it looked like when the illusion finally collapsed. The venue sat like a ghost of what it was supposed to be. A barn dressed in forgotten promises. The parking lot was half full. People still showed. Invitations still mattered. But confusion hung over them like fog. The guests stood around in small circles, glancing at their phones, whispering. No ushers. No music. Just the sound of gravel under heels and awkward laughter. The kind people make when they sense something's gone wrong. But no one wants to say it out loud. I watched Mary step outside, pacing. She looked 10 years older in that moment. Jaw tight, eyes darting. Her phone pressed to her ear like it might save her. Didn't. It never had. Inside, Jaden was already unraveling. Through the open door, I could see her moving in frantic circles, talking too fast, gesturing at staff who barely nodded back. The florist never came. The arrangements were replaced with grocery store bouquets, still wrapped in cellophane, crammed into borrowed vases. The DJ stood by his van, arms crossed, waiting for someone to hand him the final check. No check, no music. Simple math. They tried to reason with him. Kyle even pulled him aside. Probably said something about making it right after the ceremony. The DJ shook his head and drove off. They brought out a Bluetooth speaker. One of those cheap cube ones you use at beach bonfires. Someone struggled to connect a playlist. The volume flickered, cut out, came back. It sounded like a reception in a gas station bathroom. Then came the food. The caterer was hours late. And what showed up wasn't the artisanal menu Jaden had designed 6 months ago. No plated duck confit. No signature cocktails. Just cold sandwiches in plastic clamshells and soda bottles lined up like a church potluck. Even the cake, sheet-style, plastic roses, the kind you buy last minute when the bakery forgets your order. The guests sat on folding chairs. No tablecloths. No decorations. Just sweat and tension under string lights that never turned on. Still, they moved forward. The ceremony began. Kyle stood beside her. I hadn't seen him in person in years. He looked unfinished. A suit that didn't quite fit. A haircut done in a gas station mirror. His hands trembled as he offered her his arm. Jaden wore white, but not the dress she picked out. That one hadn't been picked up. She wore a backup. Something simpler, tighter. Pinched at the waist. You could tell it wasn't tailored. As they walked down the aisle, I watched Kyle's expression. He was smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. His jaw was clenched. He looked like a man holding a fragile package he didn't ask to carry. When they reached the altar, he exhaled. Loud. Relieved. Like he'd finished a punishment. Not a gesture of love. The vows were short. Rushed. Jaden's voice cracked twice. Not with emotion, but with panic. Lucas looked stunned. Like he was still catching up to what the day had become. They said, "I do." The guests clapped. No music played. Afterward, there were no posed photos. The photographer had left. He'd been waiting for payment since 9 a.m. When it didn't come, he packed up and walked out. No first dance. No bouquet toss. Just a bride and groom drifting through a half-finished dream. I stayed in my truck, windows down, radio off. A few guests wandered by, muttering. One woman, older, well-dressed, stopped near the fence. She was holding a card in her hand. I heard her say to someone next to her, "I thought Kyle was out of the picture. Who's been raising her this whole time?" The reply, "That other guy. Steve, I think. He's not even here." She shook her head. What a mess. That was all I needed to hear. The truth was leaking. Quiet, but present. In the glances. In the whispers. People were starting to ask questions. They saw the cracks. Back at home, the phone rang. Again and again. Mary tried the soft route first. "I know you're upset, Steve, but this isn't how families work." I let it go to voicemail. Then Jaden tried, "You're embarrassing me. People are asking questions." Good. Then Lucas, "You're making her cry, man." I hung up before he finished the sentence. By Monday, the online photos started trickling in. Blurry cell phone sh*ts. Comments muted. No professional portraits. No sweeping landscapes or romantic table settings. Just mismatched chairs and melted frosting. That's when people started talking. Friends, neighbors, co-workers who had been invited out of obligation. They came back with stories, with opinions. "I didn't know Steve paid for the whole thing. He raised her, right? Why would she do that? Where was Kyle for the last decade?" One guy from Mary's side told me straight, "Everyone saw what happened, Steve. Nobody said it at the time, but we all knew. You weren't just missing, you were erased." Even Kyle reached out. Called late one night. His voice was low. Ashamed. "I had no idea how much you did. She never told me." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't curse. Just said, "You should have known." And I hung up. He never called again. The house was quiet. Mary didn't come home that week. Jaden didn't call. And I didn't miss them. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think. The silence wasn't empty. It was earned. Because when you give everything and still get erased, silence is the only language that speaks truth. They wanted a new beginning. They got it. But not the one they planned. Mary didn't come home after the wedding. She packed a suitcase and moved in with her sister across town. Said she needed space to think. I gave her plenty. Jaden never called. Not once. Not even to explain. Not to apologize. I didn't expect her to. I think deep down she knew. The last conversation I had with Mary was short, measured. She stood on the porch, hands stuffed in her coat pockets like a teenager caught out past curfew. Her eyes were rimmed red, but there were no tears. Just the hollow aftermath of someone who'd spent every last excuse. "She's young," Mary said. She didn't understand what she was doing. I nodded slowly. "And you?" She didn't answer. I closed the door. That silence, that deliberate, heavy silence, was my boundary now. A line no one could cross without acknowledging what they had done. I changed the locks 2 days later. The house felt bigger after they left. Not in a good way. Not in a triumphant way. But in the kind of way that emptiness has when you finally stop pretending it's full. I started waking up earlier. Making breakfast for one. Coffee black, no creamer anymore. I donated the extra dishes, packed away the picture frames, and sold the patio furniture we never used. I even took down the Christmas lights Jaden insisted we keep up through February. No one was here to argue about it now. I sat on the couch most nights with the TV off. Not lonely, not angry, just processing. It was strange how quiet everything became once you removed the people who made the most noise but gave the least. Somewhere between March and April, word got back to me. Jaden had tried reconnecting with Kyle. She reached out a week after the wedding, probably when the embarrassment stopped stinging and the bills started coming due. She wanted a fresh start, she said. Wanted to build a real father-daughter bond. He ghosted her, didn't answer texts, ignored the emails, left her on read. Eventually, she called from Mary's phone. He picked up. I don't know the whole conversation, but I heard the summary, secondhand, through someone Mary had confided in who thought I deserved to know. Kyle told her, flat out, "Glad I could help with the wedding, but I'm not looking for anything long-term." That was it. 16 years of me, one photo op with him, and now not even breadcrumbs. That's the man she chose over me. I didn't gloat. I didn't feel vindicated. I just sat on the porch with a cup of coffee and watched the snow melt. I used to think sacrifice would earn me love, that patience would carve out a space in their hearts, even if it took years. But the truth is simpler, colder. Some people don't see sacrifice. They only see supply. They don't feel patience, they exploit it. They don't measure love in actions, only in blood. And when that blood disappoints them, they still prefer it to the hands that kept them alive. Jaden chose Kyle. Not because he earned it. Not because he showed up. But because it let her pretend her pain had a simple fix. He left. Again. I stayed. Until I didn't. That distinction matters. Mary texted once more. Months later. No subject. Just a line. "You were a good man. I'm sorry we didn't show it better." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. I had spent over a decade trying to prove myself inside a house that treated me like a placeholder. I gave them stability, comfort, protection, everything a family is supposed to build on. And still, they looked past me. Looked through me. The wedding was just the final proof. When Jaden stood at that altar, with her ghost of a father beside her, she wasn't just choosing who walked her down the aisle. She was choosing whose love mattered, whose presence had weight, whose name deserved to be spoken. She chose wrong, and I let her, because the hardest lesson I've learned is this: you can't make someone value what they've never had to earn. Jaden never earned what I gave her. Mary never protected it. And I never asked for anything in return, until the day I asked for respect. They failed the test, and I walked away, not out of spite, not out of anger, but out of necessity, out of survival. Because to keep giving to people who treat your presence like background noise, that's not love. That's erasure. These days I live quieter, simpler. I repaired the garden shed, restained the back deck, built a birdhouse just to see who might come. I learned how to cook for one. I even adopted a dog, an old mutt with cloudy eyes and a limp. We keep each other company. Neither of us expects much from the other. We just show up. That's enough. Jaden will tell her version of the story. I know that. She'll say I bailed on her wedding. Say I pulled the rug out from under her. Say I was cold, controlling, maybe even cruel. But here's the truth she won't say. I was the man who showed up for 16 years. I paid for her life. I kept the heat on, the fridge full, the tuition covered. And when she made it clear I didn't matter, I stopped giving her the life. So no, I wasn't just mom's thing. I was the spine of their comfort. And when the spine left, the body collapsed. Now I ask you, who was I, really? The father who stayed? Or the fool who stayed too long? Would you have endured it? Or would you have walked when the bill came due? Because love without respect isn't family. The servitude. And I am nobody's servant ever again.